I'm Jen Brinton, and I am the owner of Grey Sail Brewing Company here on Canal Street in Westerly, Rhode Island. The brewery started with our first brew date of 11/11/11. So we're coming up on our 12th anniversary this November, Veterans Day, always Veterans Day. And from there, we expanded with a tap room, which is where we are now in the beer garden in 2015. We had an expansion at the brewery in 2017. And the week before COVID shut down, we launched our South County Distillers spirits and distilling line. So I always say I was the supportive wife. This was something my husband Alan wanted to do since before I met him. And we met, we got married, we had kids. I always like those paychecks and things that come with working for a company. And at our 10th anniversary, we were up here in Rhode Island. We moved up here right after we got married. And we love it here. We knew we weren't going to move. We had our 3 kids at the time, now we have 4. And at that point, we just said, let's do it. Let's start the brewery that he always wanted to have. And it started with the thought that it would be a hobby brewery. And through a series of introductions, finding a building, many conversations, it rapidly became not a hobby, but actually a full-fledged business. So here we are. We're honored. It's a tremendous feeling. We're very appreciative of our customer base, starting with right here in Westerly, going through Rhode Island, Eastern Connecticut. As I look across, you can see into Eastern Connecticut from here. Really is our home base. We've had great support going with our distributors, into Massachusetts and surrounding areas, further into Connecticut as well. And it's a great feeling. And it's really something where the brands are well known, which is fantastic. Captain's Daughter really took it off, and we say put us on the map back in 2014 when we launched that at the end of 2014. And while Flying Jenny was known before that and Flagship was known, that was really the beer that then carried the whole line. And then it was, wow, we really love Captain's Daughter. What else do they make? So whether it was something that we already had on the shelf or on draft or things that we've introduced since, they've been acknowledged and picked up and really done very well, which is flattering. Again, it's a great feeling. It's a lot of back and forth too. It's not just the brands of the beer. Grey Sail, we've really worked very hard, and it was always part of our mission, being residents here, having children in the school district here, being very involved with the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce, which when I was thinking back, it really started, our deep involvement really started with Superstorm Sandy. And it really perpetuated from there to be fully ingrained in our community. So whenever there's a charitable event, whenever there's anything taking place in the community, we want to be there. We want our brands to be there. We want to be supportive of everything that happens in this great town. And we've worked really hard to do that. People say, oh, we didn't want to ask because we know you give, here and there, and we didn't want to ask and be a burden. And my response is, I would be insulted if you didn't ask me, to donate or be part of an event in some fashion, because we really just love being part of this community. But it really, Superstorm Sandy and our Bring Back the Beach Blonde Ale was probably the first foray we had into really using what we have here on Canal Street to support our greater community. And that was a pleasure. It's our home. So I grew up in New Jersey. I left there when I was married and 26 years old. Alan grew up in Pennsylvania, had lived in New Jersey for about 10 years when we moved up here. And Mom and Dad, I love where I grew up. I had a wonderful childhood, but I feel like I never lived anywhere else. And I feel that I don't want to live anywhere else. This is it for me. I mean, we have the best of everything here. We are coastal, we are farm, we are community-based, but we have tourists as well. but the year-round community is just phenomenal. I mean, it really is everything. And I don't know a better endorsement from any area other than saying we moved here from somewhere else. We never want to leave. And we raised all of our children here and hope that after they go be themselves, that they'll return to Westerly as well. So I don't, personally. It's a combination of factors. So Carrie and Earl and Cassie are out in the fields. So they're really learning kind of more what's on the shelf and what's coming out and what's popular. They're talking to accounts and finding what's moving, what styles are being requested. Carrie is excellent about following through and really knowing what's going on in the industry worldwide, and following those trends or setting the trends that we want to set. Ranch water was something with our distillery that she said had the foresight to say, this is coming, we need to do this now. And she was right, and we did it, and it was the first in the area, the first really in the region to be launched, and it took off and did very well for us and still does very well. So there's that. There's what the brewers like, but our brewers are excellent at the fact that they brew what they like, but they brew what other people will want. There's no I in it, right? There's no, this is what I want to do. They really truly brew for what our customer base, and we're lucky we have the tap room here to get a lot of customer feedback and input and requests, and sometimes those customer requests are what carry what the next style is. So I like the stouts and the barrel-aged stouts that we've done, so they're not widely available, but so I guess I'll go in two different directions. For me personally, to drink, I love like our Dave's Coffee Stout. When our brewers have done specialty beers that tail off of the coffee stout with a cherry addition or some kind of fruit addition or chocolate, I love those. I love malty sweet. However, I love Captain's Daughter because that is what keeps us having 14 employees and this campus on Canal Street. So I would be remiss in saying that that's not one of my favorite beers, because it certainly has really, like I said, put this company on the map. All of our different parts of our business are actually set up as separate businesses. A lot of that has to do with the laws in Rhode Island. A lot of it has to do with our relationship with our distributor, McLaughlin and Moran out of Cranston, who have been phenomenal. I mean, really, we wouldn't be where we are today without their help out in the fields. And that's been since before we even had a beer produced. I mean, they signed with us before we had any equipment installed. We had a home brew to share with them and a story. And they've been phenomenal ever since. So the brewery is its own entity. The tap room is a separate entity. And the reason for that is we wanted to not just feature what we have at Grey Sail, but we also wanted to feature other local beers, other wine. We feature Jonathan Edwards. It is distributed in Rhode Island as our wine of choice. Everything that we do is local. We wanted to be able to have locally made iced teas, sodas, lemonades. So we feature Granny Squibb. We feature Hosmer sodas and lemonades. We feature Dell's lemonade. So a lot of those iconic, Rhode Island entities. So we wanted to be able to do that and also have different beers on tap. And before the distillery, we had, even more. We still have some other spirits and whatnot, canned cocktails, but we had, again, other Rhode Island, when there was another locally owned Rhode Island canned cocktail, we had that as well. So we kept it as a separate business so that by license we're allowed to feature all of those things and really have it more comprehensive. And again, that was just part of being in the community. A little bittersweet because, as maybe many of the listeners know, the story with Chris DiPaolo and his passing almost a year ago in October. But our conversation started back during COVID. And boy, I can't even remember the year now as time has flown, but I believe it was about November of 21. And we purchased 39 Canal Street from Sarah and Patrick, who owned Avis, which was a long time community staple here. They had a phenomenal business down at 39 Canal Street, and they were looking to sell their building as they were shutting down their business. And through people we knew, they kind of contacted us, and we went and looked at it. And it was at the time with COVID that aluminum cans, as everybody probably read in the news or heard about, they were in short supply. Our suppliers were kind of forcing us to do things like take truckloads at a time if we wanted to keep our contracts. So that's all well and good, but you need a place to put truckloads of empty cans. So enter 39 Canal came to us at just the right time. So with that, we closed on the building, and we immediately started the conversation with Chris DiPaolo because we had some front office space, and I had no desire to be a landlord, but we had great office space, street level, handicapped accessible, all of that. And I loved what WBLQ does for the community, right? They're the voice of this community in good times and bad. They're the voice you turn to when there's something not so good that you need to learn about. They're also the ones who share the football games and the baseball games and, Charahoe games and really everything, as well as deliver the news and interesting segments. I was always partial, as anyone knows, to the Veterans Hour, and featuring and having the veterans in to discuss issues and talk and share their stories. So the conversation started with Chris DiPaolo to say, hey, would you like space here? Would this help you in any way, shape, or form? And the answer was yes. And Chris was Chris. Chris took his time simmering on thoughts, ideas, etc. And it was actually the day that he had passed away that I'd given him the key for 39 Canal. So we were getting close, right? The key wasn't the end of it. The key was, okay, now you can get in when you need to and assess and, look at getting your equipment in. And then obviously conversations on hold, and then his dad, Tom DiPaolo, and Steve Conti had contacted me a few months later and said, hey, is that opportunity still there? And of course it was. So we welcomed BLQ officially. They kind of transitioned in January, February, and really kicked off running out of that space in March. So, and I think, you can ask them, but I think so far so good, and going well. So we're very happy about that. It is. I used to say it's the only thing they gave me, except grief. So yeah, it is. In fact, all of the names of our beers have something to do with either family or geography of where we're from. Flagship was just Flagship because it's nautical and it was our first beer. Flying Jenny was our second year-round beer to be introduced. It wasn't the second beer, but it was the second year-round. And they gave me the name Flying Jenny to the pale ale that they had created. And the imagery associated with it is a Genoa sail with a G, but and its nickname in full wind, as depicted on the Flying Jenny logo, is the Flying Jenny with a G. But given another beer name with the name Jenny in it, and my name being Jennifer with a J, they changed it to the Flying Jenny, which really opened up several other doors down the line that I didn't anticipate. We have a great relationship with the Flying Jennies out of Biloxi, Mississippi, who've been here to visit several times. Actually, we have a print that they gave us hanging in our main room inside the tap house. And because of their name, the Commander Rubio had found us. They were coming up to Quonset on a training mission, and they came down and visited, and we hosted them for some dinner and drinks here, and it was just so great. And the squadron's changed, who's in it over the years, but we've hosted them twice since then. And it's just always a pleasure and something that we absolutely love, that connection. So who knew that was going to be a connection that happened, but so grateful that it did. What's next? That's a great question. I'm gonna say I'll get back to you on that in short order. We do have a couple projects on the horizon that we're working on actively right now. But I think the main thing that's next is just continuing to deepen our engagement in the community, to continue to be there for the community and be part of it, to continue to support our staff who, they're amazing. And we're so fortunate that our staff has, when somebody's joined our staff, they've really kind of stayed with our staff or left for very good personal reasons, which we were proud to be supportive of as well. And I think it's nurturing the growth here on Canal Street and the evolution of some of our products and really our staff and our community relationships and working on all of those things.